states where they've been around for about 10 to 15 years. Ohio has had them uncapped, and Pennsylvania and some other states. It traditionally levels out right around 1.5% of the students will choose, and the parents will decide that that's a better method of learning for their children. We heard testimony from kids that, or family members whose children were for medical reasons, they were unable to be in class. Some were bullied excessively, some were they just didn't learn well in a classroom environment. Others, we had one 6th grader who was programming C++ and doing a lot of advanced learning that seemed to, the cyber charter environment seemed to be working best for him. So again, we've had cyber charters around for about a year and a half, and there's 2 schools. The maximum allowed is 1,000 kids each, and so and I went and visited, I think within the last month, Fusion School, which is a cyber charter school for dropouts in downtown, near the downtown Detroit area, and saw some of the things they're doing to bring kids that are dropouts back into learning and finishing their education.
When you talk about cyber schools, is that at home unsupervised? Is that in a school environment with some teachers but fewer teachers? And I guess the other question I have is whether the cyber schools, which are for-profit, are paid the same amount of money when they're not supplying brick and mortar as we pay to have someone educated in a regular school.
A cyber charter is a nonprofit. It's just like it's a public school, so a charter school. It has a public board that meets in public. It's a nonprofit. It is chosen just like, with the blended learning, we're heading in that direction as well. Some feel that it's a lot more individualized. They have a teacher that interacts regularly on the phone. They have a person who signs up, usually the parent or guardian, who will be the coach, the learning coach that's on the other end. The kids, the cyber charter schools, the 2 that are here, they must provide the computer and the internet access.
They being the school?
Yeah, the school. They provide just a ton of materials. You end up, they send the microscope, they send all the, just tons of different, whatever is needed for the instruction. So it's quite a large volume of things that they send.
So there's no for-profit cyber schools in Michigan?
No, cyber charter schools are just a charter school. They're public schools, so they're nonprofit. Who they end up using, just like a regular school uses for-profit textbook companies to provide their textbooks, and schools utilize for-profit entities to provide a lot of their, the materials and things that they use. So that's it's on the floor of the House. It came out of the Education Committee, and the amount is currently the same amount that brick and mortar schools use. However, the appropriation chair in the House, Bill Rogers, is appropriation chair for education. They are looking at costs for. We had a superintendent come and say, "Well, we make money off of our K through 5." He was in support of the cyber charters, but K through 5 is cheaper than the other grades, and the Appropriations Committee is looking at whether we should start differentiating what we pay. It gets a little difficult because you start saying that one child should get education with less than the next child, but that is being looked at.
What is the statistics of the numbers of kids that go through that program and the success rate of that program?
This, nationwide, it's been in place about 15 years, and so they're, doing as well. It's not for everybody, but the kids that gravitate towards this are kids that do well in this environment and probably would do a lot worse from what our testimony that we heard in a brick and mortar environment. They just, they tend to excel, maybe individualized. And so, again, it's certainly, we're not requiring anybody to do it, we're not pushing anybody that direction, but it does seem to be something that there are certain parents that would like that as an alternative choice.
Does this include the credit recovery programs that the schools are also using in the high schools?
Credit recovery. I think.
Kids who are behind in their credits.
Right. Is that full-time? I don't know, do kids, if they go, if.
They're not in the credit recovery full-time.
Right.
But they make up credits. And for instance, my husband taught in Pontiac, and there were kids come June who were behind a number of credits to graduate, and the last day to get credits in before graduation, and miraculously made up, you know, between 10 and 15 credits from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and were able to graduate.
Yeah, I don't believe that it's full-time learning, so this is a, you know, this is, but when I went to Fusion, these were dropouts that were probably getting additional credits, so I don't.
Are there built-in things in the bill to prevent things like that happening?
Credit recovery. Well, I don't believe there is. Is that something that how would it?
Well, I think there should be more restriction and more overseeing of how these credits are accrued and how the kids are completing these classes. Otherwise, you get, you know, how is it that at the end of the student's done a course, do they then have to go to the school to take a final test on their own in the building, or is it completely done online? How do we know the students have completed the work?
Yeah, that came up. I mean, it would. They do take annually the proctored MEEP tests. So I mean, annually they will be taking a MEEP test that's proctored. But throughout the year, I mean, you know, they are. It would be, you know, there was a concern of this, but you'd have to do this every day. I mean, a child is learning every day. The teacher knows what. You know, it's what they've passed or what they've been able to be proficient in, so they move to the next item. They're on the phone with the child. You know, in order, if a parent wanted to do this, it would be a full-time job to try and trick somebody. You just couldn't. And then at the end, when they take the MEEP, you wouldn't. You know, a kid that's doing calculus wouldn't be able to.
Well, the MEEP doesn't necessarily reflect what they learned in an online course.
Well, but the online courses are going to be covered. I mean, the ones that are on the MEEP, that they include what they're, you know, math and English, writing. I mean, those are all items that are going to be, that they're learning online through the cyber charter. So they.
I think you're very naive in this area to see kids. I taught school for 37 years, and I saw homework returned to school in the parents' handwriting many, many times.
Right.
I think we see kids who that are going to scam the system, and then it gets to the point where you're saying, well, the cyber school isn't very good because then the cyber teacher isn't doing their job. Then who's overseeing the cyber teacher to make sure that they're keeping track of these kids?
Well, there's a principle. I mean, they have to meet all the requirements that your traditional school has to meet. You know, I mean, they, as far as reporting and transparency and accountability, and they have an authorizer that's a university that's overseeing it. They have an additional layer of accountability in these charter schools. But on credit recovery, actually there was a state rep in Detroit who was looking at supporting it, but he wanted to make sure that they could utilize for credit recovery, because he felt that there's a lot of kids that are lost in the system, that it would help if they had this option potentially. So I guess as long as it's, do you think that could be done in a correct way without a?
Well, we can get into that later.
Okay.
I mean, I could go on for hours.
So that's why, so there's no plan, there are no for-profit schools now or planned in the future, including the K-12 company?
No, those are, you know, all charters are nonprofit. so all cyber charges.
But they're using for-profit
Well,
vendor,
like
I mean,
I-
they're using
yeah,
for-profit teachers, I mean, are they bringing in, is there any elimination of teachers that are currently employed in the public school? Are we using public school teachers to,
Yeah, yeah, you have to be Michigan certified.
Okay. And they're paid the same
Michigan
salaries?
certified teachers. You know, I don't know, maybe the ones that are doing well, I imagine they might get paid more. The ones that aren't, you know, I don't know exactly,
Was there anything in the bill that covers teacher salaries, anything like that?
no. No, I mean, it's really, the focus is on the kids and making sure that the kids are growing. And so, the adults, it's really to make sure that we're taking care of the kids. I spent some time with Superintendent Clark at Musson Elementary. We were with the principal there, and we went to observe a few classrooms, and we saw varying techniques and education methods. Like I mentioned, I think